Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews, and it's actually a pretty small week. Not too bad. It's kind of a real mixed bag this week. I'll be really honest. There was some real disappointments this week, so we'll try to temper those as best they can, and as always, I'll try to be as fair as possible. And as I always say, I do not like giving comics a bad review, because I understand that even if I don't like them, I know that the creative team, they put the effort into the book, and it's for me, it's more disappointing when it's something that I don't like. So please be aware of that. Trust me, I do not like giving bad reviews, or not good reviews. So but first, we're going to start off with the newest Reckless graphic novel, Follow Me Down, from Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. And as always, these are amazing books. I haven't had a chance to read it, but I will say definitely make sure that you pre-order those through your comic shop. The reason being is when you pre-order it, you get this signed book plate by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. They sign these. See, they sign them. And so I don't know if it's the exact number, but let's say your comic book store orders 10 or 20. I believe they get the same amount of signed book plates that they pre-order. They have to pre-order them ahead of time before final order cutoff. So I know, at least at my comic shop, Pulp Fiction Comics in Long Beach, California, Ryan, when he orders them, because of the signed book plates, and he makes sure that he lets the customers know that they actually get quite a few pre-orders for these books now. Because they're absolutely wonderful books, and two, you get a signed book plate for free, and those only go to the comic shops. Amazon and stuff like that, they do. Barnes and Nobles, they do not get those signed book plates. Those are exclusive to comic shops. So that's really it's really great of the creators to do that, and it does help sell their books. So so we'll get into the regular comics now. First up is DC's Terror Through Time #1. I'll read the characters that are in the stories, and then the creative teams. So the first one is Phantom Strange story by Paul Levitz, written by Paul Levitz, with artwork by Raul Fernandez. Then we have Super Sons, written by Shali Fish, with artwork by Lucino Vecchio. Then we have Gotham City Sirens. That would be Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, and Catwoman, by Peter V. Wynn, who writes and draws it. Then we have Swamp Thing, written by Zach Thompson, with artwork by Andy McDowell. Then we have Justice Society of America, written by Charles Skaggs, with artwork by Tom Mandrake. Then we have Green Lanterns, written by Jeremy Hahn, with artwork by Juan Doe. Then we have Etrigan, written by Matthew Levine, with artwork by George Corona. And then the final story is Damien and Dead Man, written by Tom Seeley, with artwork by Kelly Jones. So as always, I generally base these anthology type books on roughly $1 per story. Now in this case, there's only 8 stories. Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There is only 8, not 10. Usually there's 10. So so these are like maybe $1.25 each. So I'm basing on that. So my ultimate thing is you want like a good 70% a good ratio, and then 3 you're willing to slide. Unfortunately, I have to say I would say maybe this one gets 20%. It's not that they're any of the stories are terrible. They're just, some of them are just really basic. The Phantom Stranger one is actually pretty good. Paul Levitz writes it. So what it is the Phantom Stranger, it's basically Halloween night, and he goes to like different things where like these kids are trick-or-treating, and there's demons, and so he keeps them away, and so that's kind of the basic story. It's so he just kind of goes through and saves people from mystical demons. It's a decent story. I like. It wasn't necessarily overwhelming. I think it was a good, solid story, but just not anything super duper special. Then the artwork's actually nice. The Super Sons is actually, here's the thing. It wasn't an amazing story, but it's super charming. And for me, that's enough. Shawley Fish writes that. He's actually writing another book that's coming up. He writes a lot of the young adults. He does the Batman Scooby-Doo books. He did the Scooby-Doo team up. And the Super Sons, actually, like I said, it's one of those, as you're reading it, you're like, oh, okay, this is nice. And then it just, so what it is, so this is the younger John Kent and Robin. Basically, they're trick-or-treating, but they're trick-or-treating with, like, they go to the Fortress of Solitude because John says, I know Superman has candy, I know where it is, but Superman's not there. And then they go to the Batcave, he's not there. They go to Theraschema, and Wonder Woman's not there. It's like, where are they? And then they finally go to the Hall of Justice, and they find out that these demons, because it's Halloween, have they're seeking revenge on the Justice League, and so they trap the Justice League, and then John and Damien save them. And so it's really actually a really cute story. And like I said, at first you're like, okay, this is nice and everything, but it really comes together in the end. It really is a super charming story. And Vecchio's artwork's really nice. That one was definitely one of the better ones. The Gotham City Sirens they're the girls are vacationing on this island, and so what it is all of a sudden, like, the cats are apparently, the island has a lot of cats on it, and what it is there's I guess you could say, a spirit of the island. The cats are messing up the ecosystem because they never were there. People brought cats there and they introduced them. So it's wreaking havoc with the ecosystem. So the spirit is basically killing the cats to try to balance out. And of course, Catwoman's not really super fond of this. And so they make a deal to like take the cats off the island. The artwork's actually really nice. The story was kind of okay. It was fine, but it was one of those, okay, that's nice. The Swamp Thing is basically a post-apocalyptic world, and this guy and his son are out foraging. Everything's radioactive, so they have to be careful about what they get. And they get attacked by this mutant creature, and then the Swamp Thing saves them. Thompson, once again, the script is just kind of okay. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's just like, okay, that's nice. The artwork by McDonald is nice. It does the job, but the story's just kind of not there. Probably the most disappointing one was the Justice Society, which I really love the Justice Society, but basically they get caught up in there's like this cult that has captured Dr. Fate, and there's a mask, and it's like a Nazi cult, and so they have to go into the museum and kind of defeat the Nazi. It's just the story's just not very good. I'm a big fan of Tom Mandrake's, and the art's actually nice, but I honestly think that he even didn't necessarily put his best foot forward, and it was that one for me was the most disappointing. The Green Lantern's story is I think it's kind of interesting. There's these demons out in space, or there's this rock or whatever out in space, and this cult is opening a gate to hell, basically, and so they have to try to stop it. And once again, it's kind of an okay story. I really like Jeremy Hahn. I think the concept was like good. I just think it landed okay. Wando's artwork, once again, the artwork's nice, but just kind of a so-so story. The Etrigan story, I think, is kind of interesting. It's a really basic story, but I do like Etrigan, aka the Demon. and basically this monster's kidnapping the local kids to eat, basically, and so Etrigan saves them and everything. And once again, it's fine and everything. I liked it because I like Etrigan, but I don't know that the story was particularly overwhelming. The artwork by Chrono's nice. And then finally, Damien and Dead Man is really one of my favorites. Part of that is definitely Kelly Jones did the artwork, and of course, he really redefined what Dead Man really looks like. But what it is there's a ghost or demon or whatever that's coming after Damien's soul, and so basically Dead Man help saves him, but he also finds out that the demon can't have his soul because it's already taken. So that was actually Seeley actually wrote an interesting story. I'll give it that. I think it was one of the more interesting stories. And then of course Kelly Jones' artwork is always fantastic. I just think overall that there was only a couple or three of them that really, I think, elevated to like, okay, I like these and everything. The rest of them were just kind of really so-so stories. And I think, you're talking about $10 and I just hate to say it, it's just not worth it. I mean, I appreciate the effort of all the creators and everything. And I like the fact that it's a Halloween type special, but it just really misses the mark. So I would say definitely that this one's a big skip this week, sad to say. Next up, we have A Legacy of Violence #1, written by Colin Bunn with artwork by Andrea Mutai. So this is the same team that does The Maniac of New York. And so basically what this is there's this Dr. Nick, and it starts off with this guy in a mask who basically is torturing this guy, and so he's inflicting pain on him, and so this guy ends up in the ER, and Nick sees him, and then the guy basically is like, he's strapped down because he's kind of crazy, and they're thinking that like, he did this to himself or something. They're not sure. And then the guy goes, "Oh, you're Nick," and then he like rips out of his restraints and attacks the doctor, and he basically says Unit 731, and then he dies. And so it's like really weird. So obviously Nick is like, okay, I don't know that I want to work in the hospital, and that's really weird. You find out through the backstory, when he's a kid, he discovers these old films of his father's, and one of them is labeled 731. We don't know what the film he watched, but we know that it really was disturbing. And so what it is this guy who's torturing these victims is working in this Unit 731, and he's basically going after Nick. We don't quite know why. And so that's the basic premise of the story. I think it's interesting. I mean, we don't quite learn a lot. Obviously, I will say visually there's kind of some disturbing stuff. So, know that ahead of time. Obviously, this is the same team who did Maniac in New York. So there's, it's not pretty at times. I think I like the idea. I just didn't quite feel that I got enough in this first issue, but I think there's enough there to definitely, give it a chance for a second issue. So once again, I think it's a minor recommendation. That's not saying it's a bad thing. I think there's some good ideas. We're just gonna have to kind of see where they take it in the second issue. But I did like Moody's artwork, because he actually he either paints it or I think it's watercolor. It's really nice. The only thing that was a little odd was that some of the characters had a greenish tint to them. So I don't know if there's a reason for that. It was just a little visually odd, not bad or anything. It just seemed a little odd. But other than that, I'm a big fan of his artwork, so I think it looks really nice. Next up, we have Wonder Woman 792, written by Michael W. Conrad and Becky Cloonan, with artwork by Margaret Savage. And then there's the Young Diana backup by Jordi Belair and Paulina Ganshu. So this is the second part of the Cheetah story. And it also ties into the previous storyline about the milk that has a secret. We find out that the plants that this facility that Wonder Woman has found, and where Cheetah is being held captive, is the ingredient that basically makes people, when they drink the milk, they're prone to suggestions. So Diana, it basically rescues Cheetah, gets her out. The secret person behind the place blows it up. And so it kind of ties into the previous storylines, and then it continues. And then basically Cheetah becomes part of the team, so that's going to be kind of interesting going forward. Like I said, I struggled a little bit with the previous storyline on the book, but I'm happy to say that this 2-part really kind of brought me back into the book. So Conrad and Clunan have really done a nice job of kind of this. I think this is a good storyline. It's also, I think, having a shorter storyline is also a big help. Because once again, Wonder Woman is really a tough comic to sell, and I think making shorter stories where at least like somebody could read this 2-part story and pretty much Conrad and Clunan are really good about explaining anything that you might have missed from the previous storyline. And really the big win is Savage's artwork is really just wonderful. It's really, she was really a wonderful artist on this. I hope she stays on the book. Because her artwork's really nice. And once again, I really love the young Diana story, but it just does not fit in the book. I hate to say this every time because I think I mean, Belair's story is really wonderful. Again, Chu's artwork is it's really a good looking story. I think it's just really mismatched here. But with that being said, I think it's a nice bonus if you're willing to kind of separate the two out. Like I said, it is a bit difficult. And I think the other thing that does hurt the young Diana is it's just, the backups are just kind of short and it's kind of a long story. So it's tough, but it is not the fault of the creators. They're doing a wonderful job on it. I just don't think it really fits with the theme that the main book is doing. But once again, creatively, it's really good. Next up, we have Scotch McTiernan's Halloween Party one-shot, written by Gary Dugan and Brian Posen, with artwork by Scott Koblish. So basically, in a way, this Scotch McTiernan is basically an Arnold Schwarzenegger type character. And so what it is he goes in there. So it's Halloween and all the monsters get together and have a party. But the problem is that over the years that they're, because of movies and the internet and stuff, monsters aren't, it's harder for them to scare people. There's even a COVID joke about this guy who's haunting this lady who has long COVID and she doesn't even pay attention to him anymore. So it's really the whole thing's kind of a parody. So what it is, it starts out, it really is a parody of E.T., except for he's more alien-like. And then Scotch comes in to find the alien and kill him. So it's a good example of the insanity of this parody is, so the kids, go over the police cars and Scotch has a bazooka and starts blowing the bicycles out of the air. And then they end up killing this one guy. And so they all the monsters get rounded up and then they get sent to an island where it's going to be like a winner takes all, kill. And it's just, it's nuts. It's stupid. It's crazy. But that's really part of the charm of it. It's so insanely stupid. I love the fact that they parody E.T., Predator. There's a Jason versus Freddy kind of parody in there. And it's really just, it's stupid fun. And plus, it's Halloween, so you kind of get all these monsters and everything. Dugan and Potion are they're having fun, and sometimes just stupid fun is really entertaining, and in this case it is. And Koblish's artwork's really nice. He does a nice job because there's a lot of big crowd scenes, and there's a lot of detail, and props to him. He puts a lot into this book, and it's really good looking. Look, if you're looking for something stupid fun, this is definitely your book. It's just insanely charming for just being insanely stupid, and that's what I loved about it. Next up, we have Love Everlasting, number 3, written by Tom King with artwork by Elsa Cartier. So each issue, it's interesting because each issue is about Joan, but it's kind of like different times. So this is more of a, I guess you could say, kind of 50s, kind of like Archie. It's not a parody of Archie, but it's kind of like that simple, that period of time. So what it is you have Joan. So she's a teenager. It's like she's graduating from high school. She's going to go to college, but her boyfriend Fred proposes to her, and she's like, well, I don't want to end up like, like the librarian who, she looks so sad, and I don't want to be, marry you. And then so she has these dreams of marrying Fred. And then she was like, her life will be over because she won't get to do things. And so that's kind of the setup. But then so Joan goes back and talks to the librarian to ask her about her life and, what she did. And so this is the interesting part of the story. So Joan starts telling her story. She kind of has the same thing. She was in love with a guy named Bill. He was like the quarterback. And so he asked her to marry her, but she said no. So she traveled around the world. She did her own thing. She comes back, and the girl that was jealous of Joan, Patty, ends up marrying Bill. And then here's the kicker. Those are her parents. Bill and Patty are Joan, the young Joan's parents. And it's like, you've got to be kidding. But then there's a twist at the end, which I will not give away, that just like has to do with Fred and the librarian. You're just like, and I'm like, what the, really, like King just like does a 360. He kind of has done this with every issue. And it's just, first of all, I love this because it's a romance comic. And I mean, I haven't seen a romance comic in like 800 years. So that's fun by itself. And then, Cartier's artwork, it's a really great looking book. And I love the twists and turns that they take. And I also like the fact that it's kind of like the same character in each issue, but it's like she's different. So it's pretty wild. Like I said, I'm not quite sure what the thought is, but I really love this book. I love the story. I love the artwork. It's just, it's really intriguing how it takes that, classical romance, but he's twisting and turning it like I've never seen that. And it's amazing. And once again, Cartier's artwork is just absolutely amazing. I'm loving this book. You definitely need to pick it up. Next up, we have Batman Incorporated, number 1, written by Ed Brisson, with artwork by John Timms. So what this is Ghostmaker is in charge of like the International Batman. So that goes back to Grant Morrison's run, where he showed that there were kind of different Batmans around the world. And so the Batman has trained, like there's a Spanish one, there's a French one, all the, they're kind of Batman-ish. And so Ghostmaker is now running the team. And what it is this killer's running around killing the mentors who have trained Ghostmaker and Batman. So it's basically kind of a murder mystery setup. And once again, it's nice. Brisson, the story was fine. It didn't have a big hook to it. It's like, it's a simple murder mystery, and that's all nice and everything. And it was kind of neat seeing the different the different foreign Batmans, but overall it just like it kind of just like, okay, that's nice. It's not terrible, it's not great, it was kind of okay. I will say I did like Tim's artwork, and I know he did a lot of Harley Quinns. But his style here is very different from that, but obviously because of Harley Quinn kind of had a specific look. But I really liked his artwork here. So it's kind of one of those things, even though I wasn't overwhelmed, I'll probably give the second issue a chance. It just, like I said, this first issue kind of felt a little basic. Not bad, just kind of basic, and didn't really have a lot going for it as far as anything original. So we'll see. Maybe there might be a little more meat on the bone in the second issue. Next up, we have Asa, the Barbed, number 1, written by Pat Shan, with Rio Burton. So basically what this is so her sister's getting her coronation, but Asa protects this. Basically, she's in charge of protecting this, like, I guess, spirit or something. And there's, like, she has it. It's trapped in her tower, and so it's her job to she's set up protections around it so it can't get out. So she goes to coronation, and so the spirit Karaka. When she goes back home, it's broken out and it possesses her, and so that's the basic premise here. Really, unfortunately, it's like, story wise, it was okay. It was just like, okay, that's nice and everything, but it really wasn't. Once again, not particularly compelling. There wasn't really a big hook. I mean, I get that it's possessed Asa and everything. But really, it's like, okay, that's nice, but what's the point? That was kind of the thing. And I will say, what really just sadly sunk this book was the artwork. The artwork was really the biggest problem. Is the artwork. There's no backgrounds in this book. There's just no backgrounds. Color is not a background, folks. And it was just no background after no background. And then on top of that, the artwork, while not, it wasn't entirely terrible. It was just really stiff. It was very stiff and just kind of very basic. And it's one of those things. I mean, there's just too many comics to come out for a book like this that is just pretty basic to just, it's just not worth it. I mean, it's not good enough. And like I said, I do not like giving, bad reviews, but this one is just not good. And like I said, the artwork is just really just not good enough. So that's that on that. Next up, we have Batman and Scooby-Doo Mysteries #1, written by Shali Fish, with artwork by Dario Brazella. So once again, as you know, I've been a big fan of Shali Fish. He did the Scooby-Doo team up. Then there was the Batman team up, and now basically this is just the same thing again. So the good thing about these books is it's a one and done story. So this one has so Ra's al Ghul is, he's what he's going to do is he's going to fire an EMP, and because humans are a problem. And so what it is there's once again, it's kind of the international Batmans that come and help Batman, Robin, and the Scooby Gang solve the mystery. They're basic stories, but I'll tell you, they're fun, they're simple. It's a great all ages book. I mean, obviously it's definitely aimed more at a younger audience, but I'll tell you, I love these books. I love them to death. Shali Fish, he really knows how to write these for all ages. He does not talk down. They're certainly not written for kids. Bruzela's artwork is really good. He obviously has a really good handle on kind of the animation style, and these are just really fun books. So this is going to be a 12-issue series, and like I said, each issue is a one and done. So I can't recommend these books enough. They're just really fun books for both kids and adults. So definitely check it out. Next up, we have Star Wars Visions #1, written and drawn by Takashi Okazaki. So really the easiest way to describe this is kind of like if Lone Wolf and Cub was done as a Star Wars story. So what it is there's this Ronin, and he has like an R2 type unit, and so it starts off that this gang basically ambushes him, and because they want his robot. And so him and the robot, defend themselves. The bandits have no idea what they've gotten into. So like, think of a Ronin Jedi. And so he comes across this other, this other, kind of Ronin Jedi at a hot spring. So what he finds out is this other Ronin is actually trying, basically sent to kill him. And so that's the basic premise of the story. It's really, the story is pretty simple, and that's kind of its best asset, is because it's a one and done story. But really the big win for this book is the artwork. Ozaka's artwork is it's really a gorgeous looking book. It's mostly in black and white, but there is splashes of color, especially with the lightsabers and stuff. So visually, it's just absolutely amazing. And like I said, the story's it's kind of like, because it's a one and done. It's kind of somewhat of a short story. It's just a full issue short story. And it's just really, it's like I said, the story's fun. It gets the job done. And like I said, visually, it's the artwork's just absolutely stunning. So even if you're not a huge Star Wars fan, or, just want to kind of, I like the fact that it's kind of a different take of something in the Star. They're using the mythology, but in a completely different way. So it'd be interesting to see if each issue's kind of a one and done thing. But I will say this one's going to be really, whoever does the second issue, this is going to be really hard to follow up, because this was really wonderful. Next up, we have Jurassic League number 6, written by Juan Gideon and Daniel Warren Johnson, with artwork by Juan Gideon. So basically this issue finishes up the Justice League, the Jurassic League's final battle with Darkseid. And so it's really, once again, this is a pretty simple book. It's just the Justice League of dinosaurs. They battle the bad guys. The humans actually help out, and it's just fun. But what I loved about, and it's kind of like, if you're a fan of like 50s science fiction films, when they would always say the end and then there would be a question mark. I won't give away the ending, but I'll say they do the same thing, and hopefully they'll maybe follow this up with another miniseries. I love how it says the end with a question mark. So did they really defeat Darkseid? Who knows? And honestly, this thing has been a blast. It's just fun and simple, and that's really its best asset. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I love the fact this is really a great all ages book, where there's a little bit of blood and violence, but it's not anything that's over the top or anything, and it's nothing really horrific, especially with the blood. Like I said, it's pretty minor. It's like comic book violence, so I wouldn't say it's probably for super young kids, but probably because they just wouldn't understand it. But other than that, it's just been a blast. Gideon and Johnson, the story has been fun. Gideon's artwork is perfect for the book. It's just a blast. So if you missed it, though, I'm sure there'll be a trade in a few months of this. Definitely check it out. It was just fun, and that's what I've loved about this book from the first issue to the last. It was just perfect fun. Next up, we have Year Zero, Volume 0, Number 1, written by Daniel Kraus, with artwork by Goran Seduska. So this is really hard to explain, because honestly, I even read this twice. I'm still not quite sure what the point of this book is, because what it does, so there's a guard on the border of North Korea. There's his story, which is really not, they just kind of introduce the characters. There's really not much story to them. So then there's Kessie Green. She's a nurse in Arkansas. Then you have Amika Suzman, who's a flight attendant. And then Gleb Rasputin, who is from Russia. He's like a hitman sort of thing. So you have the guy on the border. There's really not much of a story there in Korea. Kessie Green, so the part of her story is that this family comes in. They say, we want you to see our grandmother, but the grandmother's not there. But apparently the grandmother has chewed off her foot, and they brought the foot. So there's that. Literally, I'm telling you, then the flight attendant is just like a normal flight attendant, but she overhears this conversation with these possible government guys. Okay, that's all we get to know. And then there's the Russian kind of mob guy who goes after this guy who is he thinks the guy he's meeting he wants to have a young girl, and so he basically tortures him, and he's trying to find out who he works for, and then so there's kind of all these stories, and then at the end there's like there's something about the Titanic and you see people in ice. I have no idea what the point of this story is. I don't know where it's kind of like, okay, this is interesting, but what is the point? Because honestly, I felt there was no point in this story or this book whatsoever. It's so disjointed and a mess that it just doesn't make any sense. And the problem comes down to, it might be one of the greatest stories you could possibly ever know, but after this first issue, I have no desire to find out, because this makes no sense. You've introduced these characters, but I get that they're in weird situations and that they've seen something, but I don't care. And that's a major flaw, that you have to care a little bit, and there's no caring. Suduska's artwork is nice, but even that is like, I didn't care. And honestly, this is a skip. This is not worth your time and money, basically. Next up, we have The Approach, number 1, written by Jeremy Hahn and Jason A. Hurley, with artwork by Jesus Hernandez and Leah Caballero. So what this is, so you have 2 workers at the airport. So what it is there's this giant snowstorm at the airport, but there's this plane that has to land. So Mac and Albie get the they get the tarmac clear so the plane can land. So it's like a regular flight. So they bring the people off, and they're gonna have to stay in the airport because it's snowed in. So they kind of get everybody settled in, and then all of a sudden the tower calls and says, "Hey, there's this other plane coming in," and it crashes on the runway, explodes, and so there's like this body that they pull out of it that is kind of like all messed up and everything, and then so then they obviously the person's dead. So they bring him in to put him in a room and shut the door. And so anyways, the power goes out, and then basically this dead guy comes to life. So it's kind of like, think of The Thing. That's the only way. When I saw the end, I'm like, oh, they really like the John Carpenter's The Thing. And so it's kind of interesting. I wouldn't say that it necessarily blew me away, but I will say I did like the story. I think it has a good mystery. It'll be interesting to see, because obviously you have the monster. They're going to be trapped in this the airport. I think it's an interesting setup, and Han's written some really good series. So we'll kind of see. Like I said, there's a lot of exposition in this first issue, really setting everything up. But I think it's a good idea. I just hope that it doesn't fall a little too much into the kind of been there, done that category. But I did like the first issue. The artwork by Hervez and Caballeros, it's nice. It's a good looking book. I think it's worth checking out. Like I said, you have to remember it's a first issue with exposition. But other than that, I think it's off to a decent start. Next up, we have Batman vs. Robin #2, written by Mark Waid with artwork by Muhammad Azhar. So we know in the last issue, so at the end of the last issue, Batman runs into Zatanna, and we know that there's kind of a chaos in the magical realm of the Magic DC characters. So the weird thing is, this book kind of starts off, this issue is kind of weird because what it is, so Batman and Alfred end up going into the House of Mystery and House of Secrets with Cain and Abel. And so they kind of see like all these like mystical things, one of them is Felix Faust, that is kind of a homage to one of the old Justice League stories. And so what it is they go into these kind of nightmares. And so it's really an odd issue. It's kind of one of those, at first I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Because I'm like, it's very odd from the first issue. And like I said, I'm not quite sure what to make of this second issue, because I did really like the first issue, and I think the thing is, it's kind of, I don't want to say the only way I can kind of describe it's a little disconnected in some ways from the first issue, although it does. I think it's just weird because it went so far one way into the mystical side where it's like, I don't know, it was really odd. It was very strange to read. That's it. I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't that it was bad. It's not bad. It's just weird. Like I said, it's very, for me, it felt disjointed from the first issue, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. I just don't know. So, it'll be, I'll see the third issue to kind of see where it goes. It seemed really very different from the first issue. So we'll kind of see what happens after this. I'll give the third issue a try, but this was just really weird. I will say I do like Azar's artwork. It's a nice looking book. It's just really strange from the first one. So if you read the first one, like it, just I don't know what to tell you about the second issue. It's not bad. It's just weird. And then finally, we have Hitomi #1, written by H.S. Tack, with artwork by Isabella Mazzanetti. So what this is Hitomi is looking for this samurai that killed her parents. So that's the basic premise here. So she's heard the legend of the samurai who is basically like up in the mountains or whatever, and so she's trying to find him, but so she kind of keeps getting these clues, and she doesn't find him, but she ends up meeting this kid, and then she insults like a samurai on the way. And then there's a side story with these two sumo wrestlers and kind of their manager. And so they end up, so the samurai she stole some sake from chases her. She falls into the frozen water. And then so there's the sumo wrestlers' paths cross with Hitomi, and they pull her out of the water and everything. So it's an interesting, like, there's kind of almost too much going on. I think it's not that it's bad. It was just like a lot. Kind of there was kind of the jumps in the story with Hitomi. I think that was a little disjointed a little bit. And then the sumo wrestlers, I mean, I understand it comes together. I think the second issue might be fleshed out a little bit better. I really did like the artwork. The artwork by Mazzanetti is really, it's a really good looking book, and I liked a lot of the story. I just think there was some disjointed elements to this story, but I think it's something. It is a little different, and I liked a lot of the concept. I just was a little like, I felt this first issue was a bit on the uneven side, but I think it's got an interesting premise. So it's going to be, I don't know that it's really a recommendation, but I think it's worth looking at. I think maybe if you see it at the comic shop, flip through it and see what you kind of think. That's going to do it. Like I said, sadly, it was a real mixed bag this week. There were, like I said, the Batman Scooby-Doo, I know it's an all ages book, but I really loved it. Love Everlasting continues to be really good. The approach, I think, of the new books was probably the one I liked the most. And Star Wars Visions was a really big win, but it was really kind of a mixed bag. There were some real disappointments this week, but you know, as you always hear, they all can't be winners. So it's going to do it this week. As always, public service announcement. I get all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics in Long Beach, California. Ryan Skinner runs a great store. Annie, Eduardo are great. Wendy and Derek runs their social media. It's a really great comic store. They have a great pull service. They offer discounts on trades and graphic novels every day. If you're in the LA area, there's Pulp Fiction Culver City. Same name, different owners. Chris and her team run that store. Yeah, another great store. So if you're in the LA area, I recommend both of those stores. As always, support your local comic shop. It's always important because they're the backbone of the industry. And as always, we end our show with be kind to each other. Things are tough all over. I get it. Trust me, I get it. But being kind is just it's good for you. It's good for everybody else. Just smile, wave, say hi, open the door for somebody. Simple stuff, folks. But just take care of yourselves out there. Stay safe and stay healthy. And that's going to do it. So take care. We'll, as always, please like, subscribe, and share the videos. Comments are always appreciated. And so we'll be back hopefully next week. Fingers crossed it'll be a little bit better next week. So this is Steven from popculturemaven.com signing out. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next week. All right. Bye-bye.